You're listening to the What's Up Wednesday podcast from AAHAA Supportive Housing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to AAHAA and podcast What's Up Wednesdays. I have Miya and Zac with me from our program. There are a couple here that have been here since April of 2022, and we're going to listen and hear their stories. I'm excited to hear what each one of them have to share with us and talk about and their journey in relation to where they are now and where they came from. So without further ado, I want to kind of introduce Miya and kind of hear her story as we kind of move along here. So Miya, why don't you let us know where you started, kind of where you came from, a little bit about your history and kind of what you struggled with and kind of where you are now.
Okay, I would get really drunk to the point of blacking out and puking, and then I'd pass out, do it the next day. I think the reason why I started drinking at such a young age was because my mother, she was severely mentally ill, and she had just left her abuser. And when we left, she just went into a deep depression. And so there would be times that I would be home and she would be home, but I would never see her. So instead of us dealing with the trauma that we had been through, she just kind of isolated, and I turned to alcohol. That went on for a while. I was 17 and I started going to like an alternative school where I was around a lot of kids that were using and things. I started taking ecstasy, and I got hooked on ecstasy really bad. I was on it for like a year and a half. And I just had so much anger and resentment that I would often run away from home and just get super high because I still didn't have the coping mechanisms. So I would do whatever I could do to get high and to stay high. And that went on for a while. I'd always been drinking since I started. And then from there, I ended up getting pregnant with my first child. And I maintained sobriety while I was pregnant. I mean, I smoked weed, but I maintained sobriety while I was pregnant. And after I had him, he was maybe one. I found I was in difficult times again. I had just left his dad, who was severely abusive to me, and I found it hard to cope again. I left that situation and I was on my own with my first kid, and instead of reaching out for help, I started drinking again, and it got really bad really fast. There was a time that he was wearing a diaper and he was running around the complex, and I was just unaware, and that was my first time like really experiencing consequences of using. And at that time I didn't think I needed any help. I thought everything was fine. So I just ignored it. And it got to the point where I was drinking probably more than I ever did, abandoning my son and just being a horrible person. Things just spiraled down from there because I had a place of my own. So bad people started coming around, and I eventually lost custody of him because his dad was stable and I wasn't. And then during that time, he was a drug dealer. He sold meth, and I had never done that. And at first I didn't there wasn't any curiosity there. Like, I was associated it with like bad stuff. But the more I hung around him and the more I saw it and the more he left me for it, I felt the need to I guess fit in. But the first time I did it, I got hooked. And it was shortly after I had my second child. And things got really bad really fast. I was taking pills with alcohol. I was really bad in my addiction again. And I just kept running away from my responsibilities. I ended up getting pregnant again while I was on drugs. And I didn't stop even though I was pregnant. It wasn't until I was 4 or 5 months pregnant that I finally got clean. And what helped me was my first daughter. My mother, she called CPS on me and turned me in, and they removed my child from me. And I had no attachment to her, but I had all these people trying to help me and intervene and stuff. And I finally got into a really good faith-based program where they had this pilot program for people who were working towards reunification. And I stayed in that surrounding for about 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, because I did residential treatment and then I did sober living, and they were like a connected program. And then I graduated that program, and I was doing really good for a while. Gosh, how long I was clean for.
Well, what do you think, like, kind of helped you stay clean? I mean, what were you doing as a
I was
individually?
did a lot of Celebrate Recovery. I did the 12-step women's groups. I tried to build support within the church. I was going to church like every Sunday. Just keeping myself busy. It was hard at times because the area I lived in was like really small, so there were still people, places, and things that I had to deal with. But for the most part, I just tried to surround myself with other people that were sober and try to focus on being a parent. But yeah.
Okay. And then, so what, from there, Maya, what led you up here to Washington? Now, you were from California, right?
Mm-hmm.
Originally? Okay, so what led you up here?
Well, after me and Zach got together, we were moving around a lot, and we were trying to get our lives together because we felt like we were slipping back, and it wasn't healthy. So we knew we had to get out, and I had family out here because my dad's side of the family's out here, and we decided to give it a shot, and we came out here, and we were struggling really bad with like smoking weed. Like we were smoking weed every day, all day, and we figured it was probably time to quit using that as a crutch, to get us through, because it wasn't doing us any good. It was just causing us more issues financially, mentally, and it was just bad. So we made the decision to put that down, and we started to, try to do positive things again and change our lives and
Okay, good. So tell me about kind of what you do now and kind of how your life has kind of evolved a little bit from coming up here to our present time here today.
The main thing I've been doing, I think that helps, is I've built a lot of relationships being here. I've gained a lot of support. You guys have been our main support. You, Maria, you guys have helped us through a lot, and just having that positive reinforcement, and also building the relationships in recovery, like with the people we live with and stuff like that, has really helped.
No, that's okay. How about, I want to talk about kind of what you do now and the ironic thing about your career and kind of something that you do as far as helping people like ourselves?
Yeah, I currently work at the Tacoma Rescue Mission, and I work at Foraging Path, which is a community that helps the homeless. They have tiny homes, and there's a tent city connected, and it's working with a lot of the people in the community that struggle with homelessness and addiction, and just try to help them get stable too.
Do you have this personal story? Does it help you connect with the folks that you're working with and serving?
Yeah, it does. It makes it more understandable to see where they're coming from and seeing some of the barriers, and it helps to be able to relate.
So tell me, Zach, now that where you started, where you came from, and kind of where you are now.
Started using, or addiction started for me, like me actively choosing to do something when I was 12. That I think is worth mentioning is I was born addicted to heroin, so immediately as soon as I started my life, I was already fighting a losing battle. Born with addiction and from a family of addicts. Everybody in and out of prison, siblings all on drugs, stuff like that. So, that's just like the, kind of the basis of everything. I started smoking weed and drinking, just because I was dealing with abuse then. My dad was in and out of my life. I had gotten out of foster care recently before that. So I just kind of ran amok and did whatever. Meanwhile, my siblings were running amok, causing issues. We ended up getting evicted from our place, and we ended up having the choice, and we moved to Texas. We're in Texas for 3 years, and then ended up coming back to California, and we're there living and I was, through that whole time, I was always smoking weed just because I'd been doing it since I was 12. It was just something that was normal to me. Had never really touched anything harder than weed or alcohol. But my sister, who was on meth for as long as I could remember, like I'm always, oh, I'm never going to do that, I'm never going to do the hard stuff. Well, she ended up getting sick and she ended up dying. And when that happened, that just sent me into a downward spiral. Started doing acid, doing coke. I ended up just doing coke on a regular with somebody. And I didn't realize, because no one had ever really told me, I didn't realize when, instead of doing coke, I started to do meth. And from there, it was just all downhill from there. And I was doing that with my family, was doing it, and I started dealing myself. I was selling weed, also selling meth sometimes, doing that stuff. And eventually one of the things that kind of opened up my eyes to the reality of my situation was I ended up getting robbed, gun to the back of my head and stuff, So just through that, through the drama and all that, I ended up just getting tired of it. And I had just met Maya not too long before that, because I was selling weed, and somebody hit me up and they were like, hey, there's somebody who lives right around the corner from you. They're looking for some weed. Do you want to go hook them up? And in a way, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, or it was, because I met the love of my life. But I went and met her. Meanwhile, she had no idea that I was using. She was sober. I wasn't. But there was people who knew her who were like, if you really think about dating her, you got to keep that stuff away from her. Don't drag her back down. So I had people in my ear always putting that there. And then eventually, I ended up slipping up. I was over at her house one day, and I would leave to go do my stuff. Well, she has her 2 daughters at the time. I leave to go do my stuff. I get there. I don't have my dope on me, So I'm speeding back to her house, and sitting in the middle of her living room floor was my sack. I walked up, I grabbed it, I went in the bathroom and flushed it down the toilet, and right there I was done. Because now my issues almost became her issues, and I almost messed up big time, And that was the last time that I was going to allow that to happen. It was just what drove me to get sober off of that was just the culmination of everything. I was tired of the lifestyle, tired of the drama, because inevitably, no matter who you're using with, anything like that, nobody's in their right mind. And it's just constant drama, So I flushed it down the toilet and never touched it again after that. But didn't mean that addiction was over for me, because still smoking weed, still drinking, and addiction's addiction. It doesn't matter what it is, and it's all bad. But yeah, I ended up getting sober. I didn't go into a program or anything, which probably wasn't the best thing, because I think, working the 12 steps for anybody is, a vital part. But ended up moving in with her shortly after that, because my whole family got kicked out of our place. And from there, we ended up leaving where we were from. And like she said, we moved around for a bit. We ended up losing our place, ended up back and renting where we're from, around my family, actively having stuff thrown in our face all the time, because we ended up staying with my mom, and she was on meth and heroin, and it was nuts. But we didn't have anywhere else to go, because there's only one homeless shelter, and it was stocked full, So we really had no choice, and then ended up just coming to a head there where we were just done. And like she was saying, she has family up here, and they were all like, come up to Washington. And coming up to Washington was the best thing we've ever done, just because there's nothing, no help or anything where we're from. Because where we're from, the section of California we're from, it might be a Democratic state, but it's very Republican up there. So there's like little to no help for people who are trying to get off the streets there. But coming up here to Washington was definitely the best thing. We ended up in a shelter up here for a few months, and there was a lady who was helping us. she ended up proposing to us. Like, there's a sober living in Auburn, and they have transitional housing, and we were all for it just because, you know, we were already realizing at that time that we were just spending way too much money that we could have been saving. We were spending it on weed, using it very irresponsibly, because, you know, we were going through a lot of mental health stuff then ourselves, and, you know, we were just smoking weed to try to, you know, escape it, but it's not a cure-all at all. It's just not always a good thing, you know, because, like I said, addiction is addiction. It doesn't matter what it is, and we were very addicted to that, to the point where it was dragging us down. And yeah, we ended up coming down here, meeting with y'all, and here we are now, you know.
So tell me, Zac, now that, you know, fast forward to 2024, kind of what you do now, kind of how do you, you know, stay, you know, in your circle of self-care, kind of what that looks like for you, and kind of what you do for employment now.
Well, I guess I'll start off with I'm a house manager for one of the houses through AAHAA. I'm the manager of the family house. Maya helps me.
So you're like a power couple.
Yeah, I'm a house manager now. What I kind of do for self-care, I mean, mainly I concentrate on taking care of my kids.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. Well, I just want to say thank you again, and thank you all for tuning in. And again, I hope you find a message that resonates with you, and it continues to guide you down the right path.
Thank you for listening to the What's Up Wednesday podcast. Tune in for more addiction recovery content by AAHAA Supportive Housing.